Good evening, welcome to the Monday, November 17th meeting of Medfield School Committee. We are in the high school auditorium, which is not our usual meeting space because we're fortunate to have so many of you here tonight. Just to run through the agenda, we have some minutes to approve, new business presentation from a teacher returning from sabbatical, a discussion of school lunch pricing, jazz band trip, end of year report, and accepting the articles of agreement for accept. Old business related to donation approvals. The superintendent will report to the committee on budget, boiler replacement, school calendar, and some district recognition. And during public input, we do have a formal presentation from Chris McHugh Potts related to the Dale Street music, and then we will adjourn. So, first minutes. Motion to table, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first part of new business is a sabbatical presentation from Kristen Manning. I was actually privileged enough to see this not the whole presentation, but most of the presentation at Blake a few weeks ago. I think it's very powerful, and sometimes folks ask me what goes on in a sabbatical and how does it help our kids, and how does it help the district? And I think after this presentation, you'll understand that it really helps our kids, and Kristen just did a wonderful job. So, Kristen?
As most of you in this room probably know, I came back to work immediately after Taylor's passing and quickly realized this was a very tough decision. So many of my friends had encouraged me to take the year off, but I don't really do well with idle time either. I like being busy, doing projects, checking things off my to-do list. I needed time, but time with a plan. So after nearly 18 years of teaching, maybe a sabbatical was in order. When asked by one of my friends what that was, I explained to her that it was time granted to a teacher for study or travel. She was quick to tell me that there was nothing to think about, just do it, and so I did. I am so very happy to be back with the staff at Blake Middle School and very grateful for the warm and caring welcome that they have given. But I must tell you that my year away from the school was amazing for me, both personally and professionally. Personally, it was a time to focus on the things that are so important to me, the friends and family that I don't get to see often enough, the books that I never seem to have enough time to read, and of course being a part of the Taylor Project coming to life at Camp Jewel. Professionally, I swore I was going to finally learn how to navigate my new Apple devices with less questions for Carlos and Diane. I was going to jump in deep to my Spanish again, spend time brainstorming new ways to inspire kids to learn Spanish, and continue to network and meet with other professionals who are involved in the business of languages. And since so many of you have asked, what was your sabbatical like? Nat and Jeff have asked me to share a little today of what my school year looked like in 2013-2014. In September, I'm not gonna lie, there were many a morning that I thought about all of you, especially those with 8th period classes, as I allowed myself that second cup of coffee still in my pajamas. But I bought the laptop, I decked it out in Taylor pink, and jumped into classes, a lot of classes at the Apple Store. I have a few favorites at the Genius Bar in Dedham if you want to ask me about them later. In October, I took advantage for the first time in 18 years of being able to travel in the off-season. My college girlfriends and I crossed off a bucket list item and spent a long weekend in South Beach together. I also headed to Colorado to spend a week with my darling nieces and my sister, who many of you know I cannot imagine my life without. And that's also where I started to pilot some of the technology that I was considering using in Spain, and started making recordings with my sister's au pairs, all of whom are Colombian. November might have been about my kitchen renovation. December went by in a blur with all the fun of the holidays and another trip to Colorado to ski and to hit the hot springs. But I also had the chance to sit down and meet with two professionals who were involved in the business of language learning. I met Alen, who's developing new language-based trips for students that combine classroom time abroad and then an immediate application of those lessons with an authentic hands-on activity. We had a great conversation about how to ignite passion in language learners and motivate students to want to continue their language studies overseas. I also met George, who used to be a Spanish teacher and who had taken a sabbatical himself. We had a great chat about the work that he had accomplished designing software for a virtual classroom, and about the future of online learning, not just for university students, but its possibilities at the K-12 level as well. In January, I had the amazing opportunity to join my sister on a trip to China. Ni hao, hen gao, shing, ren shini. Boy, did I feel like a gringo in Shanghai. It was such a weird feeling for me to be embarrassed about my own foreign language skills. I've been spoiled being able to navigate my way through Europe and Central America incredibly well on my own. But it was a good experience to have gone through, as it stirred up so much empathy in me for my students, being reminded of what it's like to be a level 1 language learner again. I also had the chance to spend a day in Bangbu and meet the staff at our sister school over there. I can't tell you how nice it was to have the chance to not only see Miss Lee again, but to see her in her own environment. The day flew by in a blur of touring the school and the city and eating and photo ops, but it was a huge delight to be there. February was departure time. There were so many reasons why I decided to go to Spain. It's an extremely special place to me. It was where I studied abroad 25 years ago. It's also a place where I have a very special friendship that's 25 years strong. I met Jose in 1989. There's an enjoyable split screen shot there. And I knew he could be counted on for anything I would need during my stay. And talk about mixing it up. Norfolk to an apartment in a European capital city. But it was spending time with Jack and Dean in Madrid that was the most special part of the trip. Because it wasn't just a vacation. It was a chance for Jack, especially, to see me as a Spanish speaker outside the confines of a classroom. And more than that, it was the global education moment, when he got to see that I wasn't just visiting this place, that I was living there, and that he absolutely could develop enough language skills to live there too, if he wanted. He went with me to the butcher and the baker, not to the candlestick maker, and I got to see that very moment he understood the value of the language that he is studying, how it was going to allow me to not only survive in a foreign city, but in fact, thrive there. March was not without its challenges. To my surprise, getting Spaniards to participate was harder than I had imagined. Everyone loved the idea of the project, but not everyone was willing to be on camera. Cultivating relationships with the business owners in my neighborhood was critical and a huge part of how I spent my days. I soon understood that it was about building trust and fostering a level of comfort between myself and those that I sought to interview. Insert Jose Manuel here, with my first interview at his firehouse. After that, the project really gained momentum. Zappa wanted me to meet his sister, and she wanted me to meet her friend, and so on. Convincing them of just how much value we would bring to my students to know who they were was the key. They needed to hear that our students would appreciate knowing, where do you live? What is your job? When do you laugh? And what do you care about? And other friends of mine, lifelong learners themselves, came over and had a chance to share that same experience. It was a chance for them to see that my teaching and learning never stopped. I was over in Spain to improve my own Spanish, build and amplify the network of Spaniards that were to be a part of my work, create and develop lessons for our classrooms, and it was fun to have friends there witnessing some of them. Soaking up the last weeks of the adventure, April was over before I even knew it had started. For the first time in my life, I was in Spain during Semana Santa, which was a cultural experience that quite frankly took my breath away. The processions and the passion with which they are delivered is something to see in this lifetime. There was also the saying of the goodbyes for now, but it was easier leaving knowing that I'll be going back. And then on both ends of my trip, Dean and Jack were there to continue building family memories. We loved to travel together, and capping off my stay in Spain with an adventure to Morocco was the perfect ending. The chaotic hustle and bustle of Marrakesh and the breathtaking beauty of the Sahara are memories that will last a lifetime. I went too fast for my photo clicker. I apologize. I'm nervous. May was all about seeing the Taylor Project come to life at Camp Jewel. So much progress has been made, and we're very hopeful that TT's Grotto, as it will be called, will open next May. The volunteer effort has been Herculean, and we're happy to report that all 3 of the pools have been poured, the waterfall is built, and the spillway completed. It will be an amazing space for campers to enjoy, and I can't wait to share pictures with all of you when it's done. June was about exercise and editing. We had another amazing turnout at Taylor's Triumph this year. A big thank you to those of you who were able to attend, the Vaughn family, the Marengis, the Craws, Caney, Dr. Marsden, Deb Avery, Ellen Tubman, and my world language buds. Another thank you to Jess Safer and the Medfield High School Student Council for again manning the water stop and for continuing the graduation sign campaign, which raised another $1,500 for the project. And to Travis for organizing the second annual softball game between Medfield and Ursuline Academy. Please know that Dean Jack and I are very humbled and so very thankful for the ways in which the Medfield community honors Taylor's memory. And editing. In an ideal world, each and every one of our students would have a chance to travel abroad to study their language of choice. But until that time, we have to build opportunities and virtual spaces where they can get more access to native speakers. The work I'm giving to Medfield is a series of recordings with a variety of speakers and situations, all relating to our content vocabulary list. I worked hard on developing my own technology skills while building the website of my project and would love to share a piece of it with you now. So, just to kind of quickly be off the cuff for a second, I probably came back with about 50 total recordings and then took that raw footage of me engaged in conversations with speakers and embedded them into this TED Ed platform. The finished products are then embedded in this space where I was able to add comprehension questions and like discussion activities for our students. The website, which my content buddies have already been so kind to tell me about that they've been using, is divided mostly for high school content at the levels 2, 3, and 4 level. And as you scroll across each of those grade levels, you see the content vocabulary list that I included. If you were to click on an example of one of the lists, you would see captions and still photos of the people that I interviewed. And I'm just going to show you a quick little clip. This happens to be Jose Manuel's oldest son, Marcos, doing the recording.
Marcos, después de despertarte, ¿me puedes explicar un poco de tu rutina diaria?
Pues yo, después de despertarme, cojo este jabón y me lavo las manos. Y después me lavo los dientes con este cepillo o con el eléctrico. Y con esta pasta que mi madre me ha comprado. Después me enjuago con este limpiador de boca y también sirve para que tu boca huela fresca, que funciona así. Aquí pone 10 mililitros y lo tienes que llenar hasta 10 mililitros. Y así es lo que hago. Y así es como esto. Después cojo el peine, lo mojo con un poco de agua y me peino. Cada día como quiero. Y me miro en este espejo que tenemos aquí y así ya veo cómo estoy de arreglado. Después, de vez en cuando, por la noche por ahí, me ducho o me baño en este baño. Con esto sirve para que no me caiga y no me resbale. Y esto para cuando termine no mojar el suelo y tener que limpiarlo. Yo me suelo limpiar el
I
pelo
didn't
con esto.
anticipate him jumping in the tub, so I'm gonna cut
Lo
him
del
off here just
cuerpo
a
con
second.
esto. Algunas veces me he hecho este aceite hidratante para la piel.
Y típicamente, ¿cuándo te duchas? ¿Más por la mañana o más por la noche?
Por la tarde noche.
¿Por qué?
No lo sé, por la mañana no tengo tiempo.
Eso. Gracias, Marcos.
De nada.
Nos vemos.
Adiós.
So then, like I said, the videos were uploaded to this fabulous platform called TED Ed, and they have these little dig deeper comprehension questions that my content buddies can use in their classrooms. Those interviews and the chance to interact with and record small business owners, fishmongers, professional clowns, craftsmen, just to name a few, they've all helped to open my eyes to the scope of what is possible to share with our students. As I bring my sabbatical year to a close, and look to the new year ahead, I will simply say this. I will always be grateful to Medfield for granting me the opportunity to take the sabbatical and for seeing the potential in the work. I believe in it, and it meant a lot that you all did too. So thank you, Nat, Robert, Jeff, and Ellen for your encouragement and your support. I will always be proud of myself for embarking on this journey. We're constantly telling our students to take a risk, take a chance, and break out of their comfort zone. I put my money where my mouth is, and I did it, and I don't have a single regret. Everywhere you go, you meet people who have passions, and it's my hope that through these recordings, in some small way, our students will begin to ignite their own. And I will always know that Taylor was with me every step of the way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kristen, that was great. Appreciate it. Mr. Chair, next on the agenda is the school lunch pricing presentation. We have Michael LaFrancesca and Don LaValle, our new food service director here. And they'd like to do a presentation to update you on school lunch. And it looks like they brought some samples for you to enjoy as well. We have kale chips.
Kale chips that we have on service here for the school for the kids. We just made with olive oil and with salt. Very healthy, very delicious. And blueberry yogurt from our base with fresh washes from wild blueberries, low-fat yogurt, and we know that they make right for kids. They do good.
That's great, thank you.
Good evening. Before we start, I'm going to have Donna introduce herself and just let you know her background in food service. Okay.
Well, hello all. My name is Dawn LaValle, and I am the food service director here in Medfield. I started in August. I have about 10 years experience in food service. I've done every job in the kitchen I could possibly imagine. Started, just watching kids in the cafeteria, and then went into the kitchen and was a general worker, became a kitchen manager. Then I became an assistant food service director, and then I became a director. And I just absolutely love every aspect of it. I love the children mostly. I love being able to come up with good, fun, healthy ideas for them to be able to eat. So if you all have any suggestions for me, come and see me, okay? Let me know. I am very involved with the SNA of Massachusetts, which is the School Nutrition Association of Massachusetts, and I have learned in the past 10 years so much from them by taking their classes. Just learned so much all about how to prepare the food, to ordering of the food, to absolutely every aspect of it. And it's been very helpful for me, very educational for me, and led me to this great job that I have now, to feed the kids of Medfield good and healthy lunches. So I'm very thankful to be here.
So we're here this evening to ask for a lunch price increase, and there's twofold. One is that the cost of food is going up, and the second is there's a state and federal mandate that was established in 2010, which we're going to talk about this evening. So the lunch price increase proposal, this will be an overview of the financial impact of the program with the absence of the fiscal year 15 price increase. This evening we're going to illustrate the finances and anticipated increase in food costs for the food service department, the view of the revenue and expenditure for the school lunch revolving funds as costs have risen and the program has purchased increased amount of nutrition-dense, higher quality food. Important notes to take from this PowerPoint is that there is a memorandum from the DSC regarding mandatory price increase, the Children Nutrition Reauthorization Summary of Changes, increased cost production, tech collaborative pricing. I just want to let the committee know that this is the first time that we are participating in the tech collaborative to purchase our food and also paper goods, and the outline of increased request. Important notes: the food service department is a self-supported department. The lunch prices must reflect the increase in cost. Each year, the demand of healthier lunch and snack options have increased. And as the demand for fresh fruit, produce, and other high nutritious foods increase, so too does the cost of purchasing. Effective July 1st of 2011, Commissioner Chester sent out a memorandum providing information related to the section of 205 of the Healthy Hungry Free Kids Act of 2010, which requires school districts such as Medfield that participate in the school lunch program to ensure the schools are providing the same level of support for lunches served to students who are not eligible for free or reduced price lunches, as they are for lunches served to students eligible for free lunches. School food authorities must compare their average price change for lunches served to students not eligible for free or reduced price lunches to the difference between the higher federal reimbursement provided for free lunches and the lower federal reimbursement provided for paid lunches. The required average price in 2015 is going to be $2.70. So let me just summarize this. So what is the lunch price law? The National School Lunch Act that was passed in 2010 now requires paid lunch prices to be at least the same amount as the federal lunch reimbursement. Which, for example, the new law requires that paid lunch revenue, including the charge to students and the paid reimbursement at the minimum, be equal to the free lunch reimbursement. So the free lunch reimbursement is $2.70, and currently our elementary lunch is $2.35, and our high school lunch is $2.70. So what the $2.65, excuse me, 75 cents. The free lunch reimbursement is $2.70, and what we receive from the federal government, we receive funding from the state that is for free and reduced students. And we also receive federal reimbursement from the federal government for 26 cents on every meal that we serve. So the way they calculate it is they take the $2.70, they subtract out the 26 cents. So our minimum, the minimum that we can charge students is $2.44. And that is a federal requirement that we have to meet by 2015. So that was the first portion of it. And the second portion is that there is increase in food services. So on the school lunch tray, currently we are seeing, and these are national statistics, that bread is going up 8%, milk has gone up 8%, pasta has gone up 20%, and cheese has gone up 70%. And one of the reasons, and Doug's going to explain this, is that pasta and cheese have gone up is because in the past we were able to purchase it through the state, and now those have been diminished, so we have to purchase it through the tech collaborative. So I'm going to have Doug explain a little bit more on that aspect of it.
So here, pasta, rice, and flour are not offered to us from the USDA at all. So we have to purchase those. We purchase them through the tech bid, which we're very grateful to be on. So the tech bid is a bunch of schools that get together and they purchase things sort of as a team, and that allows them to get the best pricing available, brings our prices down as low as they can be. In the past, we did not use that here in Medfield, and so prices for the foods, were even higher. So I've been purchasing from the tech bid, but we do have to, like I said, buy all of our own pasta, all of our own rice, all of our own flour. So for instance, we last year got it from the government at, a box of 20 pounds of pasta for $4. Now we have to pay $25 for that, even through the tech purchasing bid. Cheese is actually still somewhat available through the government, but currently in Medfield, the situation is that our entitlement dollars are low, and our entitlement dollars is sort of kind of like a piggyback that we get from the USDA, and it's a certain amount of money based on the reimbursable meals that were sold the previous year. So because the counts were low and not a lot of lunches were being sold, our entitlement dollars were low. So my goal obviously is to get the counts up and get the kids buying lunch, and as we move forward in doing that, we'll have more entitlement dollars and have more products still available from the government. But cheese, for instance, we could get for $5 for a case of cheese to shred up and put on our pizzas. Because I don't have a lot available, I have to buy it out on the tech bid, and it's costing upwards of $7 a case. So, I mean, that's a huge increase to us. So these are reasons why we're really trying to upgrade the school lunch program, and we're making a lot of changes. We're writing some things to for you to try. But doing all of these things, like buying extra cheese, so we grate it ourselves and make homemade pizzas every single day, and buying all the fresh produce and making the homemade things, it costs more money. But in turn, it gives such better, more healthier food to the children, and gets them interested and to participate in it, so it helps to grow our program. So it's good for all, but it's definitely costly.
So the next few slides just show that the commodity and food price have increased across the nation. So the milk price has gone up, corn price has increased, the wheat price has gone up, fruits and vegetables has gone up. So everything we purchase today is more expensive. In the recent past, many items have increased for the food service department. Food, paper, and chemical costs have increased each year. The price of grain, milk, and dairy products, and paper prices have increased considerably. Transportation costs has also increased in everything that is delivered due to the price of fuel. Over the past few years, nutrition has become a primary focus. The department has made many nutrition-based changes for the program, and these changes have increased costs. Whole grains, low-fat cheese, 100% fruit juice, low-fat milk, and fresh cut fruit are just a few of the items that we have introduced in the past 3 or 4 months here in Medfield. These options all come with a higher price. We have analyzed the menu, purchases, and productions, and have concluded that we need to increase the elementary lunch price by 15 cents, and the middle school and high school by 25 cents. The national school lunch cost average currently is anywhere between $2.60 to $3.10. So what does it cost to prepare a school meal here at Medfield this year? Food cost is about approximately $1.30 per meal. Non-food cost is about 14 cents per meal. Labor cost is about $1.26 per meal, for a total cost of $2.70 per meal. And what we did in the past few months through the Tech Collaborative is we looked at the surrounding communities and their lunch prices. The average in this area, not including Medfield, for an elementary lunch is $2.63. Secondary lunch, which is the middle school and high school, in the area, the average, again, not including Medfield, is $3.11. So the average between the elementary and secondary, which is what the federal government wants us to do, which is the $2.70, the average in this area is $2.78. The faculty lunch, an average of $3.89 in the surrounding area. Currently in Medfield, our elementary lunch is $2.35. Our secondary lunch is $2.75 for an average of $2.55, which is below the majority of the communities in this area. And for the faculty lunch is $3.50. Our recommendation would be to increase the elementary lunch to $2.50, secondary lunch to $3, and our average would be $2.75, slightly higher than the state average, which is the requirement of $2.70. Now that state average is going to continue to go up every single year. So we don't want to come in front of the school committee every single year to increase lunch prices. We want to do it once, and we want to be able to say that for the next few years, we can keep the lunch prices the way they are to meet not just the needs of the district, but also the state requirement of the $2.70. And we also would like to increase the faculty lunch to $3.75. So we ask for your vote to accept the proposed school department recommendation for school lunch price increase. Again, elementary from $2.35 to $2.50, secondary from $2.75 to $3, and the adult lunch or faculty lunch from $3.50 to $3.75.
And Michael, we're looking at doing this January 1st?
January 1st.
Another question. Now, in terms of where we were last year and where we are this year, if you compare menus, they're different. We have seen an improvement. Have you seen an increase of participation with the lunch?
great question. You know, we have seen participation at the Memorial School alone last year. At this time last year, we were at 18%. This year, we're at close to 30%. And we're just looking at, you know, from September and October of last year to September and October this year. The other big area of participation increases at the Wheelock School, we've seen, I believe it's an 80% increase from last year to this year at the Wheelock School. We're seeing slight increases between 2 to 3% at the middle school and high school. Those are the areas that we really want to target. And in order for us to target those areas and to develop a different type of menu, we need to increase those lunches to be able to produce the lunches that we want to. So yes, participation has gone up. We looked at the revenue last year. Revenue last year at this point was approximately, I believe, 85,000, and we're currently over $100,000 in revenue just because of participation increase.
You mentioned the entitlement dollars that you get back as the participation increases. Do you expect more entitlement dollars, and where will that go?
Yeah, absolutely, we'll expect more entitlement dollars, but that takes some time. Like I said, next year's entitlement dollars will be based on the reimbursable meals that we sold this year. And it's not actually real money. It's a number on the computer that I get from the USDA, and they say, this is what you have to spend on food from us. And then I go and pick the food that I would like to purchase from them, and when I do, they take it off of that total entitlement until it's gone. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So you use it more to increase, healthy choices.
Exactly. Exactly. Purchase the products that I want to bring into Medfield that are healthier, and I think the kids would like. Exactly.
Just tell me, when was the last time we had a price increase in lunches?
We tried to do some research, we couldn't find it, I apologize.
It was before, I think I was in the committee long as before my passing.
So we're in a situation where we could lose funding because we're below the state requirement. Because price increase should have been introduced back in 2010, and we haven't increased the price. Now, we know that the state's going to come in, they're going to do a food, they're going to come in and audit us within the next few months. And we need to make sure that we took all the steps, appropriate steps, to make sure that we are meeting their guidelines. Because we don't want to be in a situation in a year from now saying that we're losing funding because we didn't increase our price.
Other questions from the committee? I would just say, we talked a lot about the school lunch program, especially in the context of budget the last 2 years. They're concerned about the revolving fund not actually being fully funded. So hopefully we have Dr. Martin's recommendation. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the increase.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
very much.
So what we'll do from this point is we'll start communicating with parents, let them know that price change is
That's
coming.
coming, we'll start now, let them know that it's coming. I have a whole email system that I use, so I can just send out a letter to everyone. And then I'll do it again as we get closer to remind them, and we'll make it happen when we return from the holiday break.
Great.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the jazz band trip. Mr. Olson is here. Now, normally when Mr. Olson presents or asks for approval for a trip, it's done a year in advance, but he came across a really good opportunity for our kids to travel to New Orleans as we'll hear from them. And it's actually coming up in the spring, which is a little bit sooner than we normally do. I would ask that you listen to Mr. Olson, and I would recommend that you approve this trip.
Good evening, members of the school committee, Dr. Marsden and Mr. Fide. Thank you for having me this evening. It's my pleasure to come tonight and talk a little bit about a travel opportunity for the members of the Jazz Ensemble this year. The past several years, we've been very fortunate to participate in some some well-known jazz festivals across the United States, and also take a couple trips. We took a very great educational trip to China a couple of years ago, and I can say the opportunity, the education that the students get from these is truly life-changing. Not only the students, but the educators. Thinking about possibilities for our program, for the ensemble, and talking to other educators that have taken the trip, not many, but a few. New Orleans, the jazz, the birthplace of jazz, America's true music, first music, seemed like a good place to start. Now, I've researched possibilities for this trip, and it would have several components to it. It would have a performance component for students to perform at some famous venues, some outdoor venues, potentially a steamboat. A seminar or clinic schedule. I'm fortunate to have some colleagues that do work in the New Orleans area, and I think nothing would be more influential for students than to get to interact with some real musicians from New Orleans, hear the history firsthand, and then also get critiqued by playing for them, and then maybe, hopefully, none of this is, or not much of it is planned yet, but to actually play with some musicians down there. And then the third component would be to visit important institutions in the history of jazz, like Congo Square, Jazz Playhouse, the French Quarter, and Independence Hall. Sorry, not Independence Hall. Preservation Hall. I ask for your approval of this trip. Just to give you an idea, our tour company that I've planned this through is the same tour company we've used for the past 20 years, Suburban Tours. They're very well known, and their reputation is great, with safety being first and foremost in all the trips that I've planned for students. The number of students that would be attending would be 20, with 2 to 3 experienced chaperones. We potentially will have parents there as well. The trip is a 5-day, 4-night trip that would leave the same day as the French foreign exchange trip in the spring and start before April vacation and then go into April vacation.
So I think you're having difficulty in the chaperone this one?
There's a line. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this. We're excited about the possibility. I had brought it to some parents, experienced parents that I had a feeling that their students would be in the program. This year, we talked about it in the spring to get some initial interest. With an overwhelming support of it, we brought it to our group in the fall. Now, I would have brought this trip to the committee in the spring, but our jazz ensemble roster doesn't happen until we audition students in mid-September. So our class and our class roster really is generated the 3rd week in September. So I would have come sooner if I could have. Are there any questions I can answer?
Yes, so how many are in the ensemble? Are there 20 kids?
There's 20 students, yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And what's the ballpark cost?
The ballpark is $1,600. I've done my very best to keep it as low as possible. We were hoping to go during the New Orleans Jazz Festival weekend, but the price went way up. So that's, and asking around, that's a pretty good price. We're going to do some limited fundraising, nothing over the top, and the parents are interested in that, given the price we told them.
So it's great you're going with an thing for quite a while. So the hotels obviously are met.
Yes. We'd be at the Holiday Inn. So there's a couple different ones. They're all 4 to 5 star hotels, and Yes, I'm the first person to be concerned about that. Having taken so many trips with student groups, you want a good, safe hotel for your groups.
This is fully funded by the families with
Correct. Yep, there's no cost to the school system.
So when you went to China, I remember there was an issue with getting instruments there and back. This is not as long a trip, but it's still, I mean, it involves same.
Yes, I learned a lot from that trip. I learned how difficult the airline industry is for taking instruments. So I do have some colleagues that have done this before, and we will be renting some instruments that we need to use when we're there, and then working out either borrowing or we ended up paying some more money to take to check certain instruments that we need to. But yes, I'll be using everything I learned from the China trip.
Any other questions? Is there a motion, does anybody move the superintendent's recommendation?
I was a recommendation to approve the trip.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Do you need an extra shot, Craig? Dr. Martin.
Chair, the next item is the end of year report. I've asked Michael Francesca to go back to the microphone.
The end of the year report is a document that's prepared every single year and submitted to the state. I just want to give you a brief outline of the end of year report and why we filed the end of year report. So the purpose behind the end of year report is to maintain state compliance, to determine state aid and federal entitlement. And it's also to determine the per pupil spending comparison between communities, the average teacher salaries, school choice tuition, charter school tuition, indirect cost, the maintenance of effort, special education expenditure percentage of the budget, and the ESE district review. So we provide and collect all the data. It's submitted in a document that Dr. Marston will be passing around. The document is about close to 60, 70 pages of information that we collect throughout the year. That document is then audited by the town auditors. They need to approve it. Once they approve it, it then goes to the state for our official documentation for the fiscal year of 2014.
I know that we just finished up the student count. Do you have a preview of what the student count numbers are going to be?
I apologize.
It's sort of unrelated in terms of the reports we get to the state. We count students on October 20th.
Yes, October 1st. So we do have the current enrollment. We do have the current enrollment. You have it right?
2,655.
How's that compare to last year?
Last year was 2,670, 21.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Mr. Chair, you need to sign that as well before the meeting. That's the last part of this report that we submitted. The next item on the agenda, we accept articles of agreement. This is really just an FYI. I'm not going to go through the entire document with you, but as you know, I sit on the tech board and the accept board, and the chair needs to sign the articles of agreement for release today, please. And then we'll submit that to accept. Remember, accept is the collaborative we belong to, and it's mostly through special education services. It allows us to provide services for low incidence children that we don't have programs for in district. And it's been very helpful for us. Also, special education transportation we use through accept, so that's also been very helpful for us. But that's really just an FYI for you, unless you'd like to go through the articles.
We need to vote to approve it.
You need to vote just to accept the articles of agreement, and then the chair will sign and we'll submit that to you.
Questions? All in favor?
Thank you. Chair, on old business, as we know, we've started to put donation approvals down each meeting, just so folks get an understanding of how many outside entities are really supplementing our budget. And one of the things that struck me when I came to Medfield is is how many of these agencies, like CSA, like MMA, like the coalition, like the PTO, are giving funds to our district that help the day-to-day operations. So it's not just the enrichment piece, it's really helping the day-to-day in purchasing technology. I had a meeting with the coalition last week and was just struck by the fact that last school year, they spent $74,000 on technology. So, we're really fortunate in town to have folks that care so much about education and want to see our kids do well, and they continue to do that. So I think it's important that we, number one, have a record of it, but number two, the word is out that there are so many other ways that we are generating revenue that people are helping us out in the budget with our low per pupil expenditure. We're generating revenue through tuition now and through grants and through these types of funds. So I would ask you to accept these donations. I have 3 of them this evening. $326.98, Medfield Memorial CSA to Memorial School for bags for multi-copy books. $1,500 Medfield Special Education Advisory Council to Medfield Public Schools in support of special education programs and activities in each school. And that was a $300 donation to each building. And then $4,500 Medfield PTO to support the dual language software for secondary students. And the last one, sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair, is Medfield Memorial CSA, $600 to Medfield Public Schools for the purchase of a PebbleGo database to the Memorial School, and that's our library software that we use. So I ask that you approve those 3, and then we have those on the record as additional funds to the district.
Second.
All in favor? Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things in our superintendent's report. One is the FY16 budget update. As you know, it's budget season, and we have been working, Michael and I have met with all the department heads and the principals, and we are working on the development of their budget at this point. We should have a preliminary budget number for you, like the second meeting in December? Second meeting in December. We'll be able to present first round budget in terms of what the increases would be and what some of the differences. Remember, some of the things that we tried to accomplish in FY16's budget was to correct some structural deficits that we've had in the district for a bit. So we've done that. There's also been some areas that haven't been funded that we need to fund because we're contractually obligated to do that. So those are some of the items you're going to see in the first draft of the budget on the second meeting in December. But things are moving along, and I know that the work committee is anxious to meet with us in the first week of December. So we'll have that initial meeting with the subcommittee. Greg is just starting before the meeting. I'll try to get a meeting to do that first week of December. In terms of the boiler placement, excuse me, any questions on the boiler replacement update? As you know, we are involved with the Department of School Building Assistance, and we are looking to replace the boilers at the Wheelock School. We received notification on Friday afternoon that the first draft of what the schematics was going to cost us for that was given to us. So we had budgeted $15,000 for the schematic design. The company came out and we met with them, they did the schematic design of, or what they think is going to be the schematic design of replacement boilers. So you sit back and you think, how much can the design be for 2 boilers? We're taking 2 enormous boilers out, we're putting 2 updated ones in for efficiency. And just for those of you that don't know, we're doing this to the state because they'll reimburse us 40% of the cost. So we could have done it through our own capital process, but we get nothing back for it. This is going to give us 40% back to the cost. But we have to jump through a lot of hoops, as you can imagine, with the state to do that. So it came in at $7,800. So we're under budget to start with the schematic design, and then the entire design cost is looking like it's going to be about $52,000. So $7,800 will be done through our FY15 budget. The rest will be done through the project cost. So the remaining part of that 52 will be done through the budget, through the project cost. So we'll get a pretty good sense in the next few weeks exactly what that total project cost is going to be. We have to present in front of the Mass School Building Board in January for their final approval. And once that gets triggered, then a lot of other things can happen. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now. We just wanted to get what that schematic would be. And again, it's almost 7,400 or so on the budget. So We're looking again, total cost probably around $300,000 to $350,000 for this project. Again, with 40% going back to the town of Medfield, so we're happy about that. But we were accepted in this program. This is a grant we had to apply for, and we were recently accepted, and now we're looking for final approval in January. Any questions?
When would the project start? If you have final approval in January, when would it be?
When the kids get up to June.
Okay.
Yeah, so that they would start, to be all summer. And, you know, there's a couple of layers to it because it is an older building, so the elbow joints have asbestos, covered asbestos in there. So they have to remove that and remediate all that, which every boiler room in the school that will have. So they have to do that first, and then wheel out the boilers are enormous, so they're bigger than these two tables. Pull those out and then replace them with a high efficiency. So they're looking at, once they start and the remediation is done, probably 6 to 8 weeks out. So the hope would be done by September, but as long as it gets us, we don't know how construction is, so it's probably going to be done by heat season. That's going to be the goal. Any other questions on that? I put the calendar on there that we talked about this when we were developing the agenda. We should start thinking about what that 15, 16 calendar looks like. So the next meeting, I'll put a blank calendar on it and start having those conversations of what that looks like. I know that certainly we got feedback, and I only got one email from a parent regarding the start before Labor Day. But I know some of you got some feedback on that. Labor Day is really late this year. It's at least the 8th. So I guess I would recommend that we begin before Labor Day, but it really is a September beginning because Labor Day is so late. I think it's the 1st or 2nd, something like that. But we'll put that out to you and then get a sense of what you're thinking. And then look at some of the professional development days. I received feedback from folks saying that was through the superintendent advisory, that having those long weekend professional development days really worked well for families. They enjoyed, I guess everyone goes skiing one weekend and the other one is another long weekend. So it worked out really well. So we're going to try to accommodate folks for a 4-day weekend again. I think that was something that was positive out of that. So I'll bring that to you. I just wanted to kind of put it on the radar that we need to look at that next couple of months. I think in years past, if I'm not mistaken, we approved this in January meeting last year. So that would give us time to think about it. And my last item, as always, district recognition. So I have a few things to share this evening on the district recognition. First of all, I want to thank Chief Bob Beatty and the police department. They helped us out with our safety drills we conducted since our last meeting. We conducted safety drills in all 5 buildings, went extremely well. We learned from the safety drills last year of some of the improvements we've had to make facilities-wise, and we made them, especially here at the high school. And when the high school was built, we weren't thinking about this kind of stuff. If you notice, the high school rooms all have big windows in the front. When you open the door, the big windows. We put shades on all those to protect the kids. One of the things that we found out during our walkthrough last time, we did these last year, that the high school kids are bigger, and they stick out, and you can see them without the window being covered. So as elementary kids, they could go in the corner if they were in a shelter-in-place scenario, and you couldn't see them. But high school kids are bigger, and it just didn't work. So we had to put those shades in. So that went really well, and I want to thank the police for their ongoing support and feedback of that. They walk through with us. They go through we go through all 5 buildings in the same day. We make notes and how we can correct things, how we can make them better. And the police department looks at it through the lens of law enforcement. They give us feedback. It works really, really well. So I just wanted to thank them for that. Also, our fire department conducted fire safety drills last week in all 5 buildings. That went well. They do those 3 to 4 times a year. And they fortunately always pick the next day for us. So it was a good another day when they did that, and they tend to always do that. So that was really helpful. So I want to thank Chief Kingsbury and Fire Department for that. In terms of memorial school, we looked at we started a foundations program this year. So foundations, not foundations, but foundations is a program that looks at phonetic awareness of kids and how they learn their letters. And we wanted to have a structured program when kids start full-day kindergarten, so that skill is really met, and then when they get in 1st grade, they can just build on that. So we're getting a lot of good feedback from the teachers. The assessments are really coming back positive. The kids are learning the letters and sounds, and it's going very, very well. So I can give you updates on that as we go along. Feedback from the full-day kindergarten folks is that they're loving the extra time, and they're settling into routines. So that's it. I think, lots of times with full-day kindergarten,
It tends to take the kids a little bit longer to get used to it. I know that I talked to some parents after the first or second week of full day, and they said the kids were just going home and sounded asleep. They were really, really tired. The kids, they build their stamina up as the year goes on, and they're doing really, really well. Our CSA provided a visit last week for Captain and Cadet Wilson on Veterans Day, so all the kids and kindergarten and first grade got an understanding of what the 5 branches of armed service are, and they got a real understanding and appreciation of Veterans Day. So we're really pleased about that, and thank the CSA for their support. At the Wheelock School, we had a buddy bench that was donated by the Fontana family on the playground, so we wanted to have kids have a place to sit. So sometimes kids aren't running around, they want a place to sit on the playground. So the Fontana family, thank you to them for donating that. The coalition just gave a grant to Wheelock of over $15,000 to complete their 3-year vision of 25 or more iPads for Wheelock. So again, we're using integrated technology in the elementary schools, and that's going well. Remember, we talked about 98% of our classrooms now have internet access. Last year was about 40 or 50%, and we're at 98% right now. And thank you to Owen for all his hard work over there to get that done. And then Wheelock had another great time at Rocky Woods, and I got a chance to go up there one day. It was great as I was dodging the smoke from the fires. The kids had a great time. It's just a really good learning experience for our kids. And it's a real rite of passage for Wheelock. And it was really a wonderful, wonderful time. So I just want to thank all the parents that helped out with that, and also all the teachers for their hard work. That's just a great program.
That's the issue they postponed it. Right. It's a lot together.
Fortunately, Rocky Woods could accommodate us, so that worked out well. Excuse me, at Dale Street School, Kim Cade was in the audience. Wanted to welcome Kim back as principal of Dale Street. You can go home, Kim, so congratulations on that. Thank you. Things are going well. Also, November is Global Giving Month over at Dale Street, and the students are raising funds for the Coalition of Courage in Africa. And they've been doing a really good job of that. That's been going on at Dale Street since 1997. So again, a tradition that is strong in the community. As part of that, December 3rd, Mr. Ruggiero will be doing a river band concert at 7 p.m. If you haven't seen that, you haven't seen what the kids do, I think it's fantastic. So I would encourage people to do that. And then the focus in December will be on raising funds for the Medfield Home Committee. So building on what they've done for Africa in November, and now bringing that close to home in December. So we're really pleased about that. So thank you for what's going on in Dale Street. At Blake, many of our teachers have attended the iPad Summit, and then also presented at the iPad Summit. I appreciate the hard work that they have. Really, they've become leaders in this type of not only instruction, but the technology presentation to other educators, that they look to them, look to Medfield to lead the way. That's just great. Diane Horvath, who is also one of the presenters, has done some parent workshop series for parents and using iPad. She's done a really good job of that. And then lastly, at Blake, they have their Veterans Day recognition. I had the opportunity to the second year in a row now to have lunch with the veterans, and it's just really great. I mean, they connect well with the kids. They give kids a real understanding of what it means to be a veteran. Kids do some writing, they interview the veterans, and then they culminate with a very nice lunch. So it's just a super day that has become a tradition over at Blake School. So I appreciate what they're doing. Lastly, at the high school, Karen Renault has actually today was presenting her 4th through 12th grade ballroom dance program at the annual conference of physical education teachers in Worcester. If you looked on Twitter today, there were lots of pictures of our kids. She brought over 40 kids with her to do some demonstrations, and Twitter has pictures of all of our kids doing the dances from grades 4 through 12. So congratulations to her and all the kids that presented that. That is a curriculum that's happening at Dale Street Blake High School. And then we had 12 kids from Medfield High School participate over the summer for the Massachusetts Scholastic Athletic Office in Franklin. It was a leadership program. Medfield High was only one of 3 schools that were chosen to participate in this. And Mr. Sperling is heading this up. He's also received a $2,000 grant from the Northeastern Center of Study of Sports and Society to assist in the program. So we're happy with that. And then lastly, my last item, sure. Elaine Liu, who's one of our teachers, has done a really good job in Mandarin and has really become a superstar in that area. The Asian Society came up from New York City to film her, and they're going to use her class and her classroom instruction as a model of how to implement and teach American students Mandarin. So they were here, I think a half ago, and Robert did an interview with them, and because of his background with China and the work he's done there, and they just couldn't be happy with the work he's doing there. So we've actually gotten grants from them the last 5 or 6 years, and they offset the cost of the salary for one of our main teachers. So they're certainly committed to it. We are committed to it, and it was just very positive experience for them. So that's all I have.
She's a great teacher.
She is very much so. Thank you.
Questions for the superintendent? Okay, this is the part of the meeting we usually set aside for public input, but first we keep lots of that to have some dedicated time, so give you a moment here. So, while she does that, just so we can get a sense of who's here, how many students are here? Parents of kids at Memorial, parents of kids at Wheeler, parents of kids at Dale, parents of kids at Lake, and parents of kids at high school, teachers, administrator, other, warrant committee, everybody.
Thank you for having me on the agenda tonight. This topic on the agenda, I'm Kristen Potts. I'm the president of the Medfield Music Association. Thank you to the school committee, to the chair, Dr. Martin, to JJ, for having me here tonight. I have timed this, so hopefully I won't go over my comment. So why are we here? So I just figured it'd be helpful just to go through the fundamental basics. 4th and 5th grade band, chorus, and orchestra was moved out of the school day this year as a pilot program over at Dale Street. Lessons in general music are still in the school day. Affects roughly 337 children, which is about 83% of the whole Dale Street population. They report to school 1 hour early, 7:30 a.m., 1 to 2 times a week. There are roughly 63 students that do 2 different ensembles, so that's why you have two times a week. Children are relying on their parents to get them there. There's no transportation provided, and there's just some logistical challenges in juggling that's taking place. So why did this happen? So it's really just a big picture view. I'm not going to get really into specifics, but we all know there's many, many demands on our schools, particularly at Dale Street. There are competing school priorities. There's a limited amount of time, a limited amount of space, a limited amount of staff. We have a music team that shares time between 3 buildings, so their time is definitely limited. And the reality is we have pressures and expectations at the state level that are putting pressure on all of our schools, Medfield and beyond. And tonight I think you're going to find that it's going to be a reasonable ask or request. Looking through our policies, I think here in Medfield, we've always had this wonderful history of collaborative decision-making. We believe in equal access, and actually, according to the law, socioeconomic isn't really something that has to be by the letter of the law, but we care about that here in Medfield. We care about meeting the needs of our low-income families. And our educational philosophy actually does touch on the emotional needs and the creativity that we want to make sure that we enhance in our students. And because I'm not an expert in school committee and educational policy, I reached out to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and just said, can you give me a little bit of advice on this, just so I was a little bit more knowledgeable. And I gave our school committee members just a handout on what the kind of information that I was able to capture from our field representative. So what has been the impact so far on this pilot? We know that children did not enroll this year in music, partly because of that change in the time. And we need to do a little bit more study on that. We also know that children have dropped out since the start of school. And we know that more are probably likely. I think one of the biggest time, a really critical time, is that we have a lot of students that rented instruments, and there's a grace period there that runs out, and if they decide they're not going to continue they can bring those instruments back. And I believe the time frame on them is January. And also the weather's going to be a factor, so that's something we're going to need to keep an eye on. We do know that ensemble attendance is suffering across band, chorus, and orchestra. A couple weeks ago, I heard from the teachers that it was down about 34 to 62 children in a week, anywhere between 8 and 37% of any one ensemble. Chorus seems to be especially hit with that. And if you look at that in terms of an ensemble that may have 35 students and you're losing your third of the ensemble at any given morning, it makes it really difficult for the teachers to teach. And it's hard for the kids to play together if not everyone's there and missing a certain instrument. We're hearing that the children they're coming in late, they're very tired, and music is hard work. So if you're coming in tired and you're trying to play your instrument and focus on what your peers are doing, it can be very difficult. A lot of parents have been expressing their concerns, sending emails to our superintendent, to the MMA, and hopefully those have been circulated. They're basically saying it's too early in the day. It's a struggle for them to juggle siblings and to get out the door. And some of them, it's just that, they just feel like there's a perception that music was just expendable, that it was just something that music was just so easy just to make this change versus something else. And I think the hardest thing is that for students, that there are just some doors closing. And sometimes, you have a student who, because it takes hard work and it takes a really big couple of years for them to fall in love with the instrument and feel proficient in it, that if they don't get that chance in those early years, it's very difficult for that door to reopen later. So if they miss out on this opportunity now, it's not that they will never get that opportunity again, but it just gets harder as they get older. And so the long-term impact is something that we're all looking at as well. If you have a drop in Dale Street, whether it's through attendance or people just dropping the program because they can't do it, and then you also have natural attrition in any music program, where you lose students year to year. Basically from the time they're in fourth grade to the high school, we end up retaining about 22% of those Dale Street students. So you can see that if we start losing students in the ensembles at Dale Street, it's going to impact the long-term numbers that we have in our program. And then it impacts Blake, it impacts the high school. And then once you start getting down that slippery slope and getting fewer students, it impacts the teachers in terms of, you don't need as many teachers anymore, and then that impacts the budget. Once you have loss of quality, you start having loss of enthusiasm with the children, and you do lose those benefits that the children can get from being in a music program. And then the financial part of it is that if a child can't do it in Dale Street and wants to keep up with it, then they have to put up the money for private lessons. Because again, it's very difficult if you don't get into music in fourth and fifth grade, which is when most kids do it. It's hard to get back in sixth grade unless you're taking private lessons. And I just want to focus a little bit on the very special aspect of what an ensemble is. The research shows that ensembles really provide the most academic benefits versus, say, general music or instrument lessons. It provides the most growth. Students, when they're playing in an ensemble together, they have to really listen to each other. There are critical thinking skills that they need to learn. There's a peer acceptance factor that's really wonderful that makes they love to learn when they're in that environment. And it's really difficult. You can't do an ensemble outside of the school day or outside of the school structure. You can take instrument lessons, but you really can't, pull 40 kids together and do an ensemble. We surveyed our alumni from 2008 to 2014, and 78% of them started at Dale Street. 64% said that the ensemble experience was really the best part of the program. According to the Massachusetts Music Educators Association, 69% of elementary school ensembles take place in the school day. And when they are moved out of the school day, there is a decline in participation over time. And it takes about 10 to 15 years to rebound from those losses if you decide to put it back in the school day. And so, when you look at what a wonderful, wonderful music program we have in Medfield, the question is, why do you want to take any steps to risk this? And it really goes back to what our values are here in Medfield. Every town has its own variation of music scheduling. I was getting overwhelmed just going through websites and calling music directors and trying to figure out, okay, is it inside, is it outside, is it overlap with recess? It's just really mind-boggling to see. I have so much empathy for anyone that has to do scheduling, how difficult that is. Our schedule here in Medfield should really reflect our values here in Medfield, our students. We really care about having a well-rounded education for our students here in Medfield. I know that. Not everyone is an athlete, not everyone is a musician. We can provide a lot of diverse activities and experiences for our children, and that's really important. And the question is, does Medfield value music? We know that we value music. And so the question is, can we find a way to make it part of the school day? And I think the really important thing here is we need to have a collaborative process to do that. We cannot have a competitive process. Because what I've been hearing and finding that really bothers me is all of a sudden you have, people, I hear, foreign language against music, and music against science, and science against recess, and recess against art. And it's like, no, we need to all work together and figure out how to meet everybody's needs and do it together as a team. We can't have this, these competing priorities of people trying to get their slice of the pie. It just doesn't work. And so we also really need to take a long-term view. There's academic gains that we can look at, and we really need to look at the children's well-being. So as part of the alumni survey, we asked the students, the alumni, being in the Medfield music program helped you academically, and 82% said yes. And then the open-ended responses where there were no prompts at all, I could not believe the number of times that those words were used: critical thinking, focus and discipline, retention of other subjects, and creativity. It was interesting to see that 47% of our national merit honors last year were in the music program. And I reached out also, there's been a lot of talk about science and science impact on music and music's impact on science. And from our own high school teachers, 13 out of 16 of those teachers believe that there's a link between science proficiency, STEM proficiency actually, science, technology, engineering, and math with music. Another interesting note, 68% of the incoming MIT students have music training. That's based on 2013. And this is to me a really disturbing slide because student stress is real here in Medfield. We have a very high performing school system. And this was based on the adolescent survey results. You can read them on your own. I think the last two, the fact that we have 10% or 80 students who seriously consider suicide in their lifetime is really a very scary thing. Even scarier when you look at 4% of 32 students, Medfield students, who actually attempted suicide. And then you look at what the benefits of what our alumni said of what our music program has done for them. And everything from giving them a sense of acceptance, a sense of community, 100% said that. 78%, go back to that stress stat, 78% said the music program helped them reduce stress. And that's, I think, just a really powerful statistic right there. And the self-confidence is incredible, broaden their interest, provided leadership opportunities, provided skills that they feel will last a lifetime. 26% said it would keep them away from drugs or alcohol or reduce their experimentation. 68% felt that they helped them feel accepted at school. And then I just want to do this here. This is a clip that we hopefully will recognize him. This is Matt O'Coin. He was valedictorian of the high school class of 2008.
Hi, I'm Matt O'Coin. I'm a 2008 graduate of MHS and a composer and conductor for New York's Metropolitan Opera and the Chicago Symphony. I learned more from the Medfield music program than I did from any other department at MHS. And I'm here to say that music should not be merely extracurricular at any point in a Medfield student's education. It should be at the heart of the human curriculum, and Medfield music students are the best evidence for why. They're engaged, passionate, and intellectually curious, and the music program affords them an opportunity to explore their own potential in a rigorous, challenging, and nurturing environment. Music is both art and science. It engages the mind, the spirit, and the body all at once. And it doesn't treat the mind, spirit, and the body as three separate entities. In music, thinking and feeling become one. I suppose I could quote the number of points that participation in music programs has probably raised Medfield students' SAT scores, and I guess I could dwell on the fact that a school system that prides itself on being one of the leading public college preparatory high schools in the state would be badly hurting a key component of its own scholastic success by cutting back on music, but the issue is too important for that. This is about our development as human beings. You might say kids who want to make music can still do it outside of school hours, like they do with volleyball or politics club. But music isn't a small, specific niche activity like volleyball. It's an entire field, like mathematics. And you wouldn't put math outside the school day. And you can't cut off the music program at its root and expect it to flourish. You can't skimp on teaching addition and subtraction and expect kids to hop right in with algebra. Please keep Medfield music healthy.
What we're hoping will happen next. And that's basically, we would just like to see a special committee or a council established that can really spend some time evaluating this pilot and can really analyze the impact, look at all the subject areas, look at the specials, figure out if there are any risks out there, for the Massachusetts Association of School Committee. They mentioned budget, staffing, collective bargaining, working conditions, equal access, school schedule issues. We really should consider the impact on Lake and the high school as part of this process. We really just, we need to look at different alternative schedules as guides. We should make school day, having music back in the school day as a priority. But I just think we just need to put more thought and process into how we're going to try and make everything work and not make a decision so hastily to just go ahead and take it out without really doing any of this legwork. And I think that's really important. And really the overarching goals are to really have a sense of collaboration here within our district, to create more harmony within our school so that people are not fighting for the same share of pie. And that we can have a sustainable outcome so that when Kim decides she doesn't want to be principal again anymore, the next person comes in, there's this groundwork that's been set for them. And that would just create a sense of trust so that we're all on the same page with our values and our priorities here in Medfield. Mr. Chairman, there are a couple people here who are happy to provide additional input if you'd like it.
I don't think it'd be useful to have folks just sort of echo your views, but I guess what I'd like to do is open the committee questions if there are any. And I personally would like to acknowledge, I have heard from, Chris quite a bit over the course of the past few weeks. We've corresponded a lot. I've heard from a lot of parents as well with actually divergent views on the efficacy of the pilot and from a lot of teachers. So I just appreciate the whole universe of feedback. If there are no questions from the committee, we will open up to traditional open forum. Again, I think it's not useful for us to hear a lot of people vehemently agreeing with one another. We've gotten the message, but there are other viewpoints that folks would like to express. We'd be pleased to hear them.
I would be interested in hearing Dr. Martin's viewpoint on this issue, particularly with the administration that was there.
Our policy on public input, Dr. Martin is very clear on his support for music, his support for Dale Street, for all academic and co-curricular activities that take place in Dale Street. It's really not the public forums for the public to express their views. Dr. Martin expresses his views at all of our meetings, and we'd love to have him over there.
In my mind, there's two issues that we need to look at here. In my mind, where we should be focusing our energy. Number one, it's a school day. I think this whole issue here illuminates the fact that we have a very fragmented school day in the elementary schools here in Medfield, that we have kids running around all different places and teachers not having kids in their classroom all the time. You know, from my perspective, there's nothing more important other than student safety than the centrality of the classroom. What happens in that classroom is the most important thing in the district every single day. And when I talk to teachers and they tell me they have, on one day, they may have their kids in the room for 25 or 45 or 50 minutes all together, then that's a problem. So I think we need to look at what the school day structure is and try to make some changes around that, because structurally, especially Dale Street, there are a lot of issues with that school day, a lot of issues with that school day. The second piece is, and I think one of the things that, and Chris touched upon, and by the way, Chris, wonderful job. I mean, I think it was great. Certainly, Chris did her homework. She checked in with me, checked in with every administrator, checked in with the union, checked in with everybody. So, I mean, she really did a wonderful job, and I just want to thank you for doing a professional job like that. That really came out nice. And also the work that you do in MMA. I'll never be disappointed in someone that's this passionate for doing stuff for kids. I mean, how can you be disappointed in this? I mean, but it's okay to disagree, but certainly her work and what she's done and what she's done for our kids as MMA president is just fantastic. So I thank you for that as well. But here's the piece that really concerns me about the music program. And I think if we don't address this, we're kind of missing everything. We're totally missing the boat and we're whistling past the graveyard. I'm going to give you an example of one cohort of kids. 2012, 2013 at Dale Street, 117 kids were involved in the band. That same cohort of kids went to Blake. 48 were involved in the band. That same cohort in 7th grade is now 36 kids in the band. I think we got to start having a conversation with those kids that aren't participating in the band and ask why. Why are you choosing not to participate in the band? We got to survey those families. We have to survey those kids, because the number, and this isn't something that's caused because of the scheduling change. I have 6 years of data, and it nosedives every single time from Dale to Blake. We have to address that. We have to have the conversation around what's going on with that, and why are kids choosing, when they get to Blake, not to participate in band anymore. Because long before this change, and we're talking, and Chris has mentioned some of the issues with participation being down. Long before that, this has been an ongoing issue in this district for a long time, and I think we need to address that particular piece. One of the things that Chris and I talked a little bit about our survey, I think surveying the folks that are no longer participating gives you that full view of actually what's going on here. I asked the teachers this year, I talked to them opening day, I asked them to say, please remove yourself from the issue, remove yourself from the classroom, get up on the balcony and ask, what's going on here? What's really the issue? What's going on here? And I think that's what needs to happen, and I'd love to be involved in that conversation. I know Nat Vaughn is very concerned about that as well. How kids in an elective during the school day are choosing not to participate in band anymore. So, Mr. Chair, those are my kind of overall thoughts. I've attended all the, I attend a lot of the band events. I love what our kids do. It's incredible that the amount of talent we have in this community with music. But I'm not so sure that I just, in line with the thinking that moving it and trying it out for one, and listen, I know it's inconvenient for parents. I get that. I'm not going to say that it isn't inconvenient. I know the communication to implement this wasn't great. I take full responsibility. I'm the superintendent. It ends and begins with me, so I understand that. But what we can do going forward is to evaluate that, get a survey of all parents in Dale Street, everybody, whether your kid participates or not, and ask questions that show every view of what's going on, not just that from a musical lens. And then get that data, get that information, and make an informed decision, not on emotion, but on data of what's best for all kids. And that's what I'm interested in doing this spring. And that's the conversation that I'd like to have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other viewpoints?
I just have a question about the survey that you'll be putting out. I'm wondering if it would be possible for you to include people beyond Dale Street in your survey of music. For example, all of the parents whose students are participating in music all the way through high school, not just Dale Street. Because Dale Street parents don't know what they don't know.
That's a fair point.
So if you would be willing to survey people at Dale Street,
I'll survey the entire district.
do the whole district.
And so, I'm sorry, Mr. Olson, Mrs. Cave and I are going to start looking at that survey. I already met with Doug last week. He put some questions together. We're going to refine it a little bit. We're looking at doing that probably in February, March. But let's do the entire, let's get data from the entire district, not just Dale Street, not just folks who are involved in the music program, but everyone, get a good sense of what the field is.
And then I just have one other
Sure.
question about your comment about the drop in participation. I think that you're coming at that a little bit from beyond. It's not a problem that there's a drop. It doesn't mean that the program is a bad program at Dale. Music's really hard, and I think that if you say that the drop is a problem, and therefore the problem is at Dale, and therefore the Dale program is not worthwhile, then those.
I don't think I said that, but.
So the 50% of the people who do choose to continue are out of luck if you think that the problem is at Dale. I think it's a dabbling at Dale that isn't going to be for everybody. And the fact that we cast the net to the whole school, and we capped a certain amount, and that the benefit to those kids is so invaluable, as we know. I interpreted what you said as that there was a big problem. There's always been attrition. There's always been attrition between 4th and 5th grade. So I don't see that as a problem.
No, the reason why I brought that up as an issue is because that's what's been said to me, that the reason, one of the negative aspects of having the ensembles before school is there's going to be kids that aren't participating. I was just highlighting the fact that happens anyway.
It does, but it's going to be disastrous. It's going to make it so small that you will not fund it. It won't continue. That it does attrition. If there is attrition, this is going to compound the problem exponentially.
But we don't know that. We can speculate, but we don't know that.
I think as in anything, the funnel, if it starts narrower and the attrition happens just by math, science, the number will be smaller. So you got to start it wide to at least get people involved, and then attrition happens in everything. It happens in sports, it happens in art, it happens in life. The second thing is, at least if I'm reading the slide right, is the ask is just to have engagement and involvement. I don't think it said the conclusion is it has to be in the school day. I'm sure there's some people who feel it's important, but just that there's a good constituency of people who are involved in the dialogue so that it's not just viewed as a music thing or a science thing. And so if the ask is just to have broad representation, I think that it's all, at least as I'm reading the slide, it's all sort of asking. So.
Just some question and then I guess somewhat different point. I am confused by the argument about attrition in that taking it out of the school day doesn't seem to possibly be a solution that's going to improve the attrition. Another point on the attrition, do you look at other electives, and is there a similar attrition in other electives, subjects that students start out and are part of the Dale Street but then become electives later?
The only elective that we have at Blink is chorus and orchestra. So I mean, I think,
but there are other, like physical education, things like that. There's certainly a drop-off there. I guess the bigger question I have is this drop-off here any different than drop-off in any other district across the state? Are we much weaker than other places, or
I guess my perspective, the whole attrition piece is that I think that's where we need to focus our energy. Why is that happening?
But I'm guessing confused at how taking it out actually improves that. So let me ask you a different question. Why take it out in the first place? Well, there must be a scheduling need that's driving that.
Well, instructional time in the classroom, absolutely.
Okay, and so this would be my different view slightly, and I know you're looking at this, so I'd like to encourage this, careful look at this, which is lengthening the school day. I think is something you mentioned. I honestly don't know how our students, with the short length of time they have, I think it's about a 6-hour day, how that we can expect them to get the kind of education I think we all like to see them have. And they get a great education already, but 6 hours in class per day, I think is way too much. And the fragmentation I spoke to my daughters about, our daughters about this. You know, they remember being in the classroom for 10, 20, 15 minutes and then moving to the next thing. I don't know how students learn in that kind of environment either. So my ask, if you would be to really strongly consider a longer day and thinking more strategically about the fragmentation of the first day than a sort of narrow view, let's take something out and see if we can get 45 extra minutes. It's a band-aid on the problem.
Well, we're talking about that problem, aren't we?
Yeah, but that's not the way to get to this problem.
We're talking about it. That's
important,
important.
right?
It's important to talk about.
Right. But it didn't need to go this way, I would argue. Sacrifice something that is valuable to the community. Potentially sacrifice it, let's say that.
Sure.
When the problem is not a music program or nutrition, but it's how do we improve our education quality.
Yes, sir.
So I think this is a multifaceted issue. Music is an art. I'm married to a musician who's an artist. Music is a science. IBM, for 5 decades now, has hired music majors second after math majors. My sister was a music major in college, and she's now doing systems architecture for IBM. There's an important relationship between those two. I was a band director 33 years ago, the last time this started happening across the country. You know, in 2008, when they said this is the worst recession since '83, that's when I graduated with my music education degree. It was being pulled out of schools right and left. I mean, 2,400 miles to get a teaching job. But it was disastrous, and it did take decades for things to be kind of recreated. And it is a practical issue. You know, we have Dale Lake Memorial. We were getting at 5:45 before this happened. You know, and we have one at Dale who's now 3 times a week, not 2. You know, I mean, 6:30 or 7 or 7:15, and it's almost impossible. So I think this is worthy of some really thoughtful study.
Thank you very much. Right on what I was saying. I spoke to some families that have younger children in more rural and preschool. When they hear what's going on with this, they have no incentive whatsoever to even enroll their children in a music program. That would promise me probably never ever want to get to school. Why would I want to do that? You should be selling the foot before the program gets off the ground.
Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add, our kids are really tired, and I know that there's been rumors going around about having middle school start later, or maybe adjusting the time that Dale starts, so we can get on the same page. And anything that takes half an hour sleep away from my kids, I'm a music supporter, but it's hard. It's really hard to get them out of bed that extra half an hour to get them into music. Or anything. Get them out of bed. They need their sleep. I mean, that's the big thing. We've seen other towns start their schools later, and now we're pushing things before school. Doesn't make sense.
Just have a question. Have you ever seen other communities have the music after school, like right after school, 2:30, 3:00, 3:15, maybe you have to be a better option? Or I'm sorry, I just was wondering if other communities have their music right after school, like 2:30 to 3:15 or something like that instead. I know we have a lot of problems at Dale with all the things that we're trying to fit into the day. And just wondering if maybe that's a better option, maybe at some point, after we look at the scheduling.
Right.
Because kids would be so tired.
Those towns that doesn't work, if 2 parents are working, that makes sense. I mean, unless there's transportation.
I think that's also a problem for the before school program.
I'm sorry, we need to, I don't mean to be a control freak, but I actually should have asked people to identify themselves before they speak. We really can only have one person talking at a time, and I wasn't trying to be glib when I said, it's not usually, this is the time when we want to hear from you. There are times when we have hearings where it's more of a back and forth, but we really do need to make sure that there's only one person talking at a time. We do really value your input. We value your feedback. Again, we talk to the warrant committee and the teacher association. We talk to an empty room 15, 20 times a year. So it's great to have so many committee people out here. But it's really important that we just hear from one person at a time. There was a woman in the back there.
Yeah, I was just commenting that if we put it after school, that would be very difficult for both parents are working because unless the school buses are available at a later time of the day, I believe that a family who's two working families would have a child in the
The viewpoints? I'm sorry, yes, ma'am.
It's just like Pam Wall. I'm trying to see the perspective on both sides here because my daughter's in chorus and I'm kind of one of those mothers that I'm just kind of at the end of trying to get her out of bed. And she loves music. I have private piano lessons with her, but the thought of trying to get her out of bed is just getting too much. On the other hand, I have yet to be able to figure out the school day at Dale Street. I asked my daughter, and I cannot figure out what the school day is. I don't know what RTI is. I don't know how many days she does social studies. I can't figure out when she does science. So I think from that perspective, I agree with Jeff. It's very confusing what the blocks of time are used for. And I think the only thing we need to understand that as parents, I don't understand it at all. So maybe you guys get it better than I do, but that's just a comment I have in general. I cannot figure out what the school day is. And it seems a little, in disarray. It just seems that kids are moving a lot. And that itself, when you only have 6 hours, which I also agree with that gentleman, that the day needs to be expanded. Just seems like a lot of wasted time. Just an observation.
Yes, sir.
My name is Paul Arkansas, NHS Class of 2012. I'm a Daniel alumnus. And you've heard from a lot of parents, adults, and I think that what you need to know is that we, who are all a part of the music program, who the music program lives within us, it's really a big part of us. We really echo this sentiment. Obviously, we understand the attrition, and we just need you to know that we are big proponents of keeping it as part of the school day. I think we can all agree. Just know how much that means to us as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
James Callahan, current Medfield senior in orchestra. I'd just like to make the point that at Dale Street, music was really a unifying force for the class and almost a rite of passage. And especially with this ensemble group, I remember at the end of the day, every Friday, and it was a thing that kids looked forward to. And I know this is put up a slide that had the percentage, somewhere in the around 80% of the kids participated in music. And I remember when I was there, it was near close to 100% of kids who did that. Because if they didn't, they'd be like with their teacher, But, it's, of course, kids don't want to do, but, the added benefit of just, going somewhere and knowing everyone else is experiencing the same thing. And even if you're not going to do it the next year, just getting your feet wet and experiencing music, together, I think it's a great experience.
I was just going to say that I think, putting a Band-Aid on an issue is sometimes necessary before it heals completely, and that this conversation is all good, and that as parents, I think we have to have a passion for music,
to share that with our fourth graders, they're not able to make that decision. We have to get them out of bed at 6:30. They might not want to. I don't think that's a big deal. My kids will still play active on this year, go to school at 7:30 and make it work because we value that. So I think that, you said maybe it was a hasty decision or it was your decision and you made that quickly and we're going to do the ask here, we're going to figure out a group of people and do a survey. I don't think it's, the day is short, there's not enough time to teach. Do we sometimes have to say the one elective thing needs to come out per year so we can teach science and math and reading? We really want kids who go to college for STEM and we need to teach science. So I think that from emails that I've read and stuff that I've heard about this, that was one of the reasons we need more time to teach science. Is science more important than music? I'm not going to say that, but I think as parents we can decide this is a priority for our kids and don't have to, but it's not really just the kids in fourth grade.
Again, thank you all for coming. I will open up open forum if there's anybody who wants to talk about a different issue, because we do have open forum at every meeting. So if you'd like to talk about a non-music issue, we'd love to hear from you now. This is more like a typical meeting, or not? Yes, ma'am.
Can you please briefly, for Tam Wall and myself and for those of us who have numerous experiences with RTI now, tell us what RTI time is? Anybody?
We might defer to Mrs. Cade on
It's a big chunk of time.
It's a big chunk.
it. It is big. It stands for responsible intervention.
Yes, it stands for response to intervention. It's one period a day, every day of the week. And teachers with students are in teams or groups so that they can work with their teachers at a level that is appropriate for them, whether it's because they need extra support or they need enrichment. And it's in English language arts and math. And we're kind of, this is my 6th day last week.
She's counting funny.
So, excuse me?
You're counting funny.
Well, 22nd year, 6th day as in terms of response to intervention. So I'm just kind of getting understanding of what it has become in Dale Street. But that was my goal a couple of years ago when I left Dale Street, and I'm happy to see that it's in place because it's really an opportunity for kids to get extra support or enriching in those important subjects. And that is also the time when students go to world language or have their music lessons. Does that make sense? Does that help, Mrs. Wall?
I'm not quite sure, but I'll look at her schedule and she tells me it's not every day. So I'm confused.
Because she might be going to.
I don't want, this is not about my particular case.
If kids go to, it is an important part of the academic day. If kids go to world language or certain kinds of other activities, that's a day they're not getting RTI.
So RTI potentially could be twice a week to 2 to 3 times a week for every individual student. But it takes place every day because different students are going different places, like a big huge puzzle. Interesting to say.
So I've done elementary scheduling for over 20 years. I've never seen anything like the Dale schedule. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. So it's a work in progress, and it can be improved on that.
And I'm happy to sit down with anybody, not tonight.
What you gave Sheila?
After
this. Yes, sir.
I understand at the lower schools, kids are being exposed to Mandarin and Spanish, however, not French. I was wondering if there's an initiative on the part of the school committee or anyone to add French and expose it to these students. Because if a student is, to go to the middle school and take up French, it might have been a little wasteful to not have it, the prior year.
I could say there's not a current initiative to do that. When we implemented the World Language Program 2 or 3 years ago now, I lost track, we took a look at what students were most interested in as they move forward, and frankly, with a few hours in the day and a few budget dollars to spend, that's how we allocated it. Certainly, if there's different interests, then that decision may change in the future, but that's not something that's currently understood.
Just to echo it, from my experience as being an elementary principal 15 years ago, And one of the things that we did that was important, I think, and Nell and I talked about, is that we added 30 minutes the day before we implemented that program. So that, again, really preserving the centrality of the classroom. The most important thing is every day what happens in that classroom. So that's what we have here is just a lot of stuff being put on the same day and then nothing expanded. So it's a structural issue that we have right now that we got to address. We definitely have to address. But I did ask her the budget presentation. I asked Mrs. Tubman, what would a French program in elementary school look like? Much to her shock.
Excited. Well, again, thank you all very much for coming in. Mrs. Potts, thank you so much for this presentation and all our experience. Just to run down future agenda items again, FY16 budget is coming up, and we will get a meeting on the calendar of the budget subcommittee with the warrant committee's school committee subcommittee. Not subcommittee. Further update on the school calendar at the next meeting and a boiler replacement update, presumably with a timeline for funding.
Yes.
Okay. This is the time we give our members an opportunity to speak their mind on anything, the pertinent issues of the day.
I just want to shout out.
You skipped it, Jim. He's got 8x10 color awesome photos down here.
Just as a brief update, just kind of total relates to everything we've been talking about, but we are currently doing the food drive for student council. We're running that, and that is going to go until Tuesday. So all the students here, if you'd like to bring in cans, there's a chance. Sorry, I'm so sidetracked by the other issues, so I don't really do anything more.
I'd like to thank the coalition for hosting not only the community trivia night this past Friday, but also the student one for the middle school and the high school. People were really excited about that, and I'm really excited about what's going on at Dale with the global giving month. I was in the savers class, and kids in all the classes are doing great work over there, so that's great.
Just thanks to Chris, I thought that was a really great presentation, and Kristen got on that was really wonderful too. So it's a great meeting. I'm glad you guys are talking about.
I just want to welcome back Mrs. Kate. It's good to have you back. We appreciate you pinching. Any further report? Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mike Sullivan, and you're watching Medfield.tv.